Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com, Valvoline, and Goodyear. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Well, thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome to the first of what we hope is going to be mini MotorWeek podcast. I'm John Davis, host of MotorWeek, and with me, sitting around our table in Studio C, is producer Brian Roberts, our senior writer and reporter Dave Durso, consumer reporter Yolanda Vasquez, and our road test producer and editor Brian Robinson, who we always refer to as BR Square. So if that comes out, you'll know who we're talking about.
Hello.
And so everybody say hello.
Hey there.
Hey. How you doing?
How you doing? And the idea is there's no idea. We're going to talk about MotorWeek's 28th season, and yeah, that's a long time.
Can you believe it's been 28 years?
No, I can't, except my arthritis tells me it has been. 28 years on public television, and I guess about a decade now on Speed TV.
Yeah.
And with that, we're kicking off a new season, and we're doing something a little different this year. We're doing what we call our Clean Power Drive season, and this sort of plays off something that we did last year in the spring. We had a Clean Power Drive segment where we went out and tried to answer a lot of consumer questions about what's better. Hybrid vehicles, diesel vehicles, other alternative fuel vehicles. And because there's so much interest in that with $4 a gallon gasoline and all, we've all had to pay it this summer. We're going to expand that topic, be talking about it all through the season this year. We'll have a Clean Power Drive special in October that will talk simply about what's available now to get better fuel economy. But throughout the year, we're also going to be highlighting our road test, and we do, 150 cars a year, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're going to be highlighting the cars and trucks that are exceptional either because of their fuel saving or emissions technology or just because they've got high MPG and a great price. And we're going to be designating them our Energy Smart Road Test. So that'll be something new for this year. And actually, in the first couple of shows, we've got several. We've got the Honda Fit. We've got a Mercedes BlueTech Diesel. We've got quite a few things coming for this Energy Smart moniker that will set it apart. So that kind of sets up the season. And all of you are veterans of the show. None of you have been here just yesterday. Let me start. Give me your idea of what you see right now as far as what the state of the automobile market, what consumers are interested in. I should say, along with all of these energy-saving vehicles we're talking about, we're still going to be basically testing the hottest hardware out there, from Challengers to Ferraris, you name it.
New ZR1.
We're going off to see Dave Scrivener, our other senior producer, is off driving the Bugatti right now, I understand.
Where is that? Well, how come I'm never around when the Bugatti's here? I don't understand. I miss these things.
You didn't get the long straw.
I sure didn't. I tell you, it's not a good thing to be low men on the totem pole around here, but it's all good.
Well,
it's
Yolanda,
okay.
Go ahead. Why don't you start off? You actually have been with us the least time of any of us around the table today.
True.
And you also represent, frankly, a different point of view. You're the female in this conference this morning, in this podcast. And, what do you see as, since women really control, people don't realize women control over 2/3 of the new car buying purchases.
85% of the choices come from women. Yes, we are the ones behind the men saying we want that
sale.
car. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
right. And contrary to a lot of popular belief, women love performance vehicles.
Yes, we do.
But right now, what are your compatriots, your friends telling you that if they're in the market for a vehicle, what are they looking for?
Fuel economy is it. Fuel economy. What kind of vehicle can I get that's not going to cost me an arm and a leg? And that's the one thing that a lot of women have been speaking to me about. Yes, performance is important, and believe it or not, other exterior features matter to women, and especially mothers. I mean, I did a whole segment, as you know, about this website called MotherProof.com, where women are looking for certain things. They don't want to know specifics about cargo space. They want to know, can I fit the stroller and everything else I need? So I think women's needs sometimes tend to be very different from men when they're looking at vehicles. But everybody wants to know more about these alternative fuel technologies. They're very, very interested in it. And I just did the hydrogen tour down in D.C., and it was amazing the number of people that came up. All the car manufacturers had their hydrogen-powered vehicles there. And there were, I wouldn't say more women than men, but there were a lot of women. And the first thing, the question was, do you understand what this is about? And a lot of women, to hear their conversations, they knew exactly the functions and how it all worked. So I think there's a lot of interest on behalf of just the general public. Another story we'll talk about is the GM Project Driveway, where we're driving around in the vehicle that had molecules on it, and people were stopping. I mean, they were stopping a lot of these Project Driveway participants, and we'll talk about that later.
Let's go ahead and talk about that right now, because this is, a lot of people are very curious about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. We've seen the Honda
FCX Clarity.
Yeah, the Clarity, which basically is on the road in California.
Right.
And here in the East, we have GM's Project Driveway, which is a modified Chevrolet Equinox with GM's latest fuel cell in it. And you had a chance to drive it, and people should know that, yes, we know you don't have hydrogen fueling stations around the corner, but most people are very curious, thinking, am I driving a bomb? Does it drive normally? What were your impressions? Because you spent quite a bit of time in this Equinox.
Well, interestingly enough, I've had this conversation with a lot of people about what do you think about the difference in the hydrogen-powered vehicles. And frankly, when you get in them, there isn't that much of a difference. I mean, even if you look at this prototype vehicle that GM put out, just looking at it from the exterior, it doesn't look any different than their regular Equinox. And I think they were going for that, other than it's heavily badged. But there's some things that you need to get used to. I mean, it's a lot quieter. You hear that jet engine sound when you first turn it on.
Did that bother you?
Did that bother me? No.
Because there's a lot of discussion now about whether these vehicles need to sound like an internal combustion engine to make us feel more comfortable in them.
Well, I just think it's a matter of us getting used to things we're not accustomed to, and that's going to take some time. Instantaneous torque the minute you drive the car.
Because it's an electric motor.
Because it's an electric motor.
Right.
The braking was a bit stiff, but they said that they can make adjustments with braking software as they go forward. But to me, there really weren't that many differences. Now, when you go to the hydrogen filling station, that took a few minutes to get used to. I mean, the process itself is pretty much the same, and they've got a data port that comes to the back of the license plate because they're collecting information. But for the most part, and even our participants, and just so I can say real quickly, Project Driveway is a 2.5-year-long market test that GM is doing, where they're putting 100 of these Equinox vehicles out on the streets in New York, LA, and DC, and they're putting the vehicles in the hands of everyday drivers to get feedback. They want to know how the vehicle performs. They want to know how they use these vehicles in their everyday lives. And then they're going to take that so that they can use it for the advancement of electric drive vehicles. And that's where GM is going with this. And it was fascinating for me to sit in the passenger seat while we followed two participants around DC. And people in Toyota Priuses were stopping. I mean, no, seriously.
Wondering what it was.
Wondering what is this, and is it good on gas? And tell me a little bit about the fuel economy, and how does it work? And I mean, so that's when I say the interest is there. It is all over the place.
But the big problem, though, with the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles is that they still are off in the future, and we're going to be bridging to that future with other, either high mileage internal combustion engines, diesels, hybrids are going to become much more relevant. And people, one of the things we're going to focus on this year is what can you get right now? Brian Robinson, I want to turn to you because a new vehicle, second generation, that's just out on the market, the new Honda Fit for 2009, second generation Honda Fit, high mileage, very versatile. For those of you that watch the show, you know that our road tests are usually made up of a lot of different opinions. That's the way we do it. But there's always one person on the staff that spends more time with the vehicles than anyone else. And it's usually Brian Robinson because he's in charge of the road test. But Brian, you also went on the press event for the Fit.
Yeah, exactly.
So give me your synopsis. I mean, this car has been widely anticipated. The first Fit was very well received. It's high mileage. Did they improve it that much?
Yeah, we gave it our 2007 Driver's Choice Award, and they've only made it better. It's a little bit bigger, it's a little more horsepower, a little more versatile.
But about the same fuel economy.
About the same, mid-30s.
Yep.
And they redid the rear seat, which I think was probably the best improvement. It was kind of a hassle before. It's folding it. It's much easier now.
They call that the magic seat.
Magic seat, yeah.
And what they do, just put a lever so you only... and my understanding is the lever, since I actually haven't gotten in the vehicle, you push the lever one way now and it all works instead of having to, it's like a Rube Goldberg.
And no headrest removal or anything, folds flat.
So it's much more efficient. When we did the first test of the Fit, and one of the things we liked about, because we call it our Driver's Choice Awards, is we loved the way it drove. It was fun.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain why, because it's not overly powerful and it handles well, but not really that well. but there's something about it. It's very fun to drive, and it still
has
carries
a really
that
good
on
balance.
Yeah.
Is it that Honda DNA? I mean, we've been saying, I can remember for almost decades now, we've been saying, Honda would come out with a new Accord, a new Civic, and you would look at it and say, well, it's bread and butter. But gosh, you got behind the wheel, and there was something about it that just felt great, reassuring.
Well, it's so practical and it's affordable too.
But fun.
Yeah. Well, maybe not quite as affordable. I mean, they've raised the price a little bit. It's almost merging into Civic prices, and I think it starts at $14.5 and goes up to about $18.
And you can buy a lot of subcompacts for less.
I think Yaris starts at 13, something like that.
Just but generally not as well equipped. But still, you didn't see anything with the 09 that would change your opinion.
The only negatives, the ride may be a little harsh for older people. They made a big deal about not just for kids, but for people who want a smaller, more fuel-efficient car. Mm-hmm. Coming out of mid-size sedans, I think they might find the ride a little harsh. And also, it gets great fuel economy, but I think the tank's only like 11 gallons. So
you got to stop often?
Yeah.
Fairly often. Yeah. Be careful about the older people comment, because even young people have to drive through potholed roads. I don't want to give, I said at the opening, I don't want to give anybody an opinion, though, that we are going to walk away from basically the core premise of MotorWeek, which was always to be the television adjunct to a major print magazine. So we'll be covering the gamut of vehicles this year. So while there's a lot happening on the fuel efficiency side, there's also a lot happening on the performance side, mm-hmm. and one brand that has been making its mark for the last, 5 years now or so, and a resurgence like we haven't seen of any other Detroit brand I can think of, is Cadillac. And the details are out now on the new Cadillac CTS-V. And Brian Roberts, you basically have had the chance to spend some serious time behind the wheel. I'll set you up. When we did the original CTS-V, we took it to Roebling Roads mm-hmm. Raceway in Savannah, the track that we use in the wintertime. And it was the first domestic four-door sedan and one of very few sports sedans we've ever had there that we could run all day at that track and then pile in the back and go to dinner that night.
Absolutely.
And on what I must say are the cobblestone roads down there in Savannah at the waterfront. Yeah. And the car did everything superbly well. So did they make it better?
They made it better. And this thing has a ton of horsepower, 556 horsepower.
It's a Corvette engine.
Yes. Very, very fast. Fastest production sedan out there. It really is.
Really?
It's faster than an M5. It's faster than an E63.
Wow.
And it's priced like an M3 and a C-Class.
So like a performance of an M5, but priced like a 3 Series.
Yeah, they haven't announced the pricing yet, but they're thinking it's going to be in the mid-60s.
Okay.
Which
on that ticket, it's a high-ticket area, but that's still cheap when you can look at the performance.
Yeah, and the magnetic ride control, it's the next-generation magnetic ride control, which helps with the suspension dampening. It's just incredible. It's really nice.
Anything you didn't like? I mean, did you feel like they've improved the styling, they improved the interior?
No, the last generation had some wheel chatter when you got on it real hard, suspension, and they've gotten rid of that. It's surprisingly quick. You look down, all of a sudden, you're approaching triple-digit speeds very quickly.
We should say, not on public streets.
No.
At least we're not going to admit to that.
Yeah, we actually took it up to the Monticello Motor Club, the new race course up in New York, right outside New York. So spent half a day there. Yeah. Yeah.
I know a lot of viewers and listeners, right now, the last thing they want to hear is high horsepower. But the fact is, cars are fun. Mm-hmm. And cars are the stars of our show, and we're going to make sure that even when you're looking at something like the CTS-V, it's amazing. Here's a car that will outperform almost anything else on the road. And when and it probably still, I don't have it in front of me, but I would be willing to bet that the highway fuel economy is over 20 miles per gallon. And when you look at that kind of performance, back when I was getting my license back in the 60s, those kind of cars would be in the single digits as far as fuel economy and still wouldn't have anything close to the performance. So we have come a long way in both performance and efficiency, even for the high-end cars.
The viewer still wants that performance. I talk to viewers cars all the
Absolutely.
time, and the serious performance people still want to see that stuff.
And I think people want performance even in their fuel-efficient vehicles. I mean, we know that Honda is going to be coming out with essentially a sports car that's a hybrid, because they recognize that people want fuel efficiency, but with the electric motor assist, it'll be quick.
Right.
They still want to know if it's going to get out into traffic, if it's going to get onto that highway off ramp really well, or something like that, or get it emerge real quickly. They don't care if it's getting 50 miles to the gallon. They still have to get up and go with all their gear in it.
And speaking of that, David, you are our resident motorcycle expert. I mean, we've got a lot of riders sitting around this table, but Dave is in charge of all the two-wheeling road tests, and we do 3 or 4 bikes a year. But this year we wanted to do something different as part of our Energy Smart road test. We've gotten a lot of emails, and there's a lot of chatter on the internet about three-wheeled vehicles, and I won't quite call them motorcycles, but they are, that where you have 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back, being substitute commuter vehicles. People think they're going to offer a lot of advantages as far as fuel economy and also ease of parking and all. And you spearheaded our test of 2 of those. And, I know you're a purist, but, what was your general impression? I mean, tell us what we tested and then basically go from there.
Okay, we basically went with 2 vehicles. One made by Bombardier, which is the Canadian snowmobile and ATV builder. It's called the Can-Am Spyder. And it's really put out there as more of a performance roadster kind of machine.
And it's got 2 wheels in the front that are fairly widely separated.
They're basically small car tires. I mean, it's got some serious meat on the road. And it's got one in the rear. It's about 1,000 cc V-twin.
So it's pretty powerful.
It's the same engine used in some Italian sport bikes. In fact, it's built by Rotax in Austria. And it's basically, you ride it like a motorcycle, but it doesn't drive like a motorcycle. If you're coming straight off a bike, first it doesn't lean.
Oh, that's
so
right.
that's a very different
right.
thing.
It doesn't lean.
So you're really throwing your body into it to get it around corners sometimes. They even recommend you lean out over the front tire to really help, because it won't tip over, but it feels you're feeling that pull of gravity anyway, so you really have to use a lot of body English when you get around corners.
It was a little hard for me to get used to. I mean, I ride a Harley, and getting on that thing, it was difficult to figure out the leaning.
It's very stable, though, right?
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, that's what they're selling these as for non or new bike riders, I guess, is if you're coming out of a car, you won't have the instability that you're used to.
Yeah. It feels more like an ATV or a snowmobile in terms of the way you ride it. So I don't know if a new bike rider is necessarily going to jump on this and feel comfortable right away, because even coming off a motorcycle, it's a new technique. You have to kind of relearn how you ride these things.
You need a motorcycle license to ride it.
In most states, yeah. They're working on getting that changed, but in most states, you still need a motorcycle license to ride it.
BR Square, you rode it, right?
It was fast and a lot more fun than I thought it would be.
So it is, this is kind of a performance vehicle. So it's fast, and as I recall, fuel economy was in the 30s. So that's really not much better than a compact car.
Like a compact car, yeah. It's not necessarily, and I don't think they don't really approach it that way. While, but you look at most motorcycles, a lot of high-performance motorcycles, they're not doing any better. As horsepower keeps creeping up with motorcycles, fuel mileage is going down.
But then there's the second one that you tested as well.
That is the Piaggio MP3. And
one of the weirdest vehicles we've ever tested.
That's a scooter. But unlike every other scooter on the market, this one has a pretty complex front suspension that allows the two wheels in the front, right. And they actually, when you lean it like a regular motorcycle or scooter, and the wheels actually tilt as you lean. There's all these little arms and everything under the front end of the vehicle are actually helping you lean the whole thing.
So you can basically ride that more or less like you would a normal scooter.
You ride it just like a normal scooter. It doesn't feel any different.
Until
it handles
you come
like
to
a
a stop.
scooter. Then it's interesting. You can put your feet down just like a regular scooter, or there is actually a little button on the handlebar, and when you get down to just a couple miles an hour, you'll get a little warning light, and you can push that, and it will lock the wheels in an upright position. And you can actually just pull up to a stop, never put your feet down.
You just have to get used to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I guess
John,
I'm to the point where I can't think and talk at the same time. I had trouble with getting the front wheels to lock because there's also a beep, but the beep doesn't happen until after you've locked the wheels. So you've got this light that you've got to either be aware of or at least sense when the bike is going slow enough. So it starts blinking. Then you have to keep pushing the little knob because you can't just push it and hold it. And then you hear a beep that confirms that it's locked. I would have preferred if, instead of having the light, that if you heard the beep when you got slower, so you didn't have to look down.
It requires a little bit of seat time.
When you push the little button, you could hold it in. But I'm sure I would have gotten used to it.
Yeah. I did. I got to ride it a fair bit, and even rode it in heavy traffic. Rode it through D.C. and down in Washington D.C. That's some heavy traffic, and you do get used to it after a little while. And the nice thing about that was it's at low speeds. It's really stable. I mean, more so than a regular scooter, and I think that's going to be the appeal, especially to beginners, is it does feel more stable at low speeds and over like rippled pavement and stuff like that, which they're going to encounter in urban commutes. Though this thing actually, it'll hold its own on the highway, and
it'll efficient too.
Oh yeah, well we got like 56 miles to go.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
say. But it'll hold its own on the highway. You can go 70, 80 miles an hour on this thing on the larger version with a 500cc engine. I
was going to say I really liked riding it. I thought it was easy to ride, and I didn't want to get off of it. I really liked it.
You have to have a motorcycle license to ride both ways?
Yes, in most states, again, motorcycle license, and also it's available with 3 engines. You can get a small 250, which is really efficient. We actually got 56 miles to gallon out of the largest engine, which was the 500.
What was the MSRP on that thing? $7,000
to $8,000
around there. Yeah.
So a lot less than the Bombardier. Yeah. Speaking of new technologies, as we wrap things up for our first MotorWeek podcast, Brian Robinson and I are off to the Paris Motor Show. Any details out yet about what's going to be there? There's a few things that we've seen on the internet.
Yeah, just some things I found on the blogs. I think Chevy Volt, aren't they doing the production version of that there?
My understanding is the production version of the new Chevy Volt, GM's new generation hybrid that's going to run supposedly 40 miles on pure electricity, that's going to be held off to the LA Auto Show, but I think they're going to show some kind of a European adaptation of it, which they've already shown one. It looks like, though, a very busy show. I know GM has already talked about several unveilings. BMW's got new unveilings, Mercedes. And because it's Paris, we know it'll be a pretty flamboyant show.
Yeah, I think the Toyota's got a couple coming out that they had showed earlier, production versions of those. I think Nissan 370Z, maybe.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think maybe
that'll be a good place for it. Yeah, Paris is the big international fall show this year. Last year it was Tokyo and Frankfurt. This year it's Paris. And it really gets the auto show year started off with a bang. So,
how did I not see this? Is what I'm talking about. The Bugatti. No one invited me to Paris. I don't understand.
You get to go to beautiful downtown Washington.
I know. That's what I'm trying to change.
Too often, you miss all this.
I know. I'm working on it.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed our first MotorWeek podcast. I want to thank everybody: Brian Roberts, Yolanda Vasquez, Dave Durso here, and Brian Robinson for participating in what was a lot of fun. We're going to do this real soon, and I also want to thank Michelle Parker, who was producer of this podcast, so she gets all the credit or blame, depending on where you sit right now, and Jim Bigwood, our audio engineer, who made sure you could all hear us. For all of us at MotorWeek, I'm John Davis, and we hope to see and hear you soon.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Cars.com, Valvoline, and Goodyear. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.